The kind stranger. The sun was setting over the small town of Willowbrook, casting a golden hue over the cobblestone streets and quaint cottages. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant sound of children laughing as they played in the park. It was a peaceful evening, one that seemed to promise nothing out of the ordinary. But for Emily Carter, this evening would mark the beginning of a life-changing encounter. Emily was a young woman in her late 20s, with a heart full of dreams and a spirit that refused to be broken, despite the hardships she had faced. She had moved to Willowbrook a year ago, seeking a fresh start after the sudden loss of her parents in a tragic accident. The small town had welcomed her with open arms, and she had quickly found a job at the local library, where she spent her days surrounded by books and the quiet companionship of her colleagues. But despite the warmth of the community, Emily often felt a deep sense of loneliness. She missed her parents terribly, and the weight of their absence was a constant ache in her chest. She had no siblings, and her few friends from college had drifted away over the years, caught up in their own lives. Emily often found herself wondering if she would ever find true happiness again, or if she was destined to spend her life in quiet solitude. It was on this particular evening, as she walked home from the library, that she first noticed the stranger. He was sitting on a bench in the town square, his head bowed as if in deep thought. There was something about him that caught Emily's attention, something that made her pause and take a second look. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that fell in loose waves around his face. His clothes were simple but well-made, and he carried himself with an air of quiet dignity. Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure of whether to approach him. But something in her heart urged her forward, and before she knew it, she was standing in front of the bench, looking down at the stranger with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The stranger looked up, and Emily was struck by the intensity of his gaze. His eyes were a deep, piercing blue, and they seemed to hold a world of pain and sorrow within them. For a moment, he simply stared at her, as if trying to decide whether to answer or not. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm fine," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "Just thinking." Emily hesitated again, unsure of what to say next. But the stranger's eyes held hers, and she felt a strange connection forming between them, a connection that she couldn't quite explain. "My name's Emily," she said finally, offering him a small smile. "Emily Carter." The stranger studied her for a moment longer, then nodded again. "I'm Daniel," he said simply. "Daniel Gray." There was a pause, and then Emily gestured to the space beside him on the bench. "Do you mind if I sit?" Daniel shook his head, and Emily sat down, folding her hands in her lap. For a few moments, they sat in silence, the only sound the distant chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. "So," Emily said after a while, "what brings you to Willowbrook?" Daniel was quiet for a moment, as if considering his answer. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm just passing through," he said finally. "I don't really have a destination in mind. I guess I'm just wandering." Emily nodded, understanding the feeling all too well. "I know what that's like," she said softly. "Sometimes it feels like you're just drifting, doesn't it?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." They sat in silence for a while longer, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. Emily felt a strange sense of comfort in Daniel's presence, as if she had known him for years rather than minutes. There was something about him that made her feel safe, as if he understood her in a way that no one else did. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice soft and hesitant. Do you Do you ever feel like you're searching for something, but you don't know what it is? Emily looked at him, surprised by the question. It was something she had often wondered herself, but had never been able to put into words. Yes, she said slowly. All the time. It's like there's this emptiness inside me, and I don't know how to fill it. Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. I know exactly what you mean, he said. I've been searching for something my whole life, but I don't even know what it is. I just know that I haven't found it yet. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, and she blinked back tears. I'm sorry, she said softly. I know how hard that can be. Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. Thank you, he said quietly, for understanding. They sat together for a while longer, talking about their lives and their struggles, sharing their hopes and fears. Emily found herself opening up to Daniel in a way she hadn't with anyone else, and she could tell that he was doing the same. There was a deep sense of trust between them, a bond that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Emily realized that she didn't want the evening to end. She didn't want to say goodbye to Daniel, not yet. There was something about him that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years, and she wasn't ready to let that feeling go. Daniel, she said finally, her voice trembling slightly, would you like to come over for dinner? I mean, if you don't have anywhere else to be. Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with surprise and gratitude. I like that, he said softly. Thank you, Emily. They walked back to Emily's cottage together, the streets quiet and empty as the town settled in for the night. Emily's heart was pounding in her chest, but she felt a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. As they reached her cottage, Emily opened the door and stepped inside, Daniel following close behind. The warmth of the fire in the hearth greeted them, and Emily felt a sense of comfort wash over her. She turned to Daniel, offering him a small smile. Make yourself at home, she said softly. I'll just be a moment. Daniel nodded, and Emily disappeared into the kitchen, her mind racing with thoughts and emotions. She didn't know what had come over her, inviting a stranger into her home like this. But something about Daniel felt different. He wasn't just a stranger, he was someone who understood her in a way that no one else did. As she prepared dinner, Emily found herself thinking about the future, about the possibilities that lay ahead. She didn't know what would happen between her and Daniel, but she knew that she wanted to find out. There was something about him that made her feel alive, and she wasn't ready to let that go. When she returned to the living room, she found Daniel sitting by the fire, his eyes fixed on the flames. He looked up as she entered, offering her a small smile. Thank you, he said softly, for everything. Emily felt a lump form in her throat, and she blinked back tears. You're welcome, she said quietly. I'm glad you're here. They ate dinner together, the conversation flowing easily between them. Emily found herself laughing more than she had in months, and she could tell that Daniel was enjoying himself as well. There was a sense of ease between them, a comfort that made Emily feel as if she had known him for years. As the evening wore on, Emily found herself opening up to Daniel even more, sharing stories from her childhood and her dreams for the future. Daniel listened intently, his eyes filled with warmth and understanding. He shared his own stories as well, and Emily found herself drawn to him even more. Finally, as the fire began to die down and the hour grew late, Emily realized that she didn't want the night to end. She didn't want to say goodbye to Daniel, not yet. There was something about him that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years, and she wasn't ready to let that feeling go. "Daniel," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly, "would you like to stay? I mean, if you don't have anywhere else to be." Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with surprise and gratitude. "I like that," he said softly. "Thank you, Emily." They spent the rest of the night talking, the fire crackling softly in the background. Emily felt a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time, and she knew that Daniel felt it too. There was something about him that made her feel whole, as if he had filled a void in her heart that she hadn't even realized was there. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, Emily realized that she had found what she had been searching for all along. It wasn't a place or a thing, it was a person. It was Daniel. And as she looked at him, sitting there by the fire, she knew that she had found her home. Epilogue. Years passed, and Emily and Daniel's bond only grew stronger. They built a life together in Willowbrook, surrounded by the love and support of the community. Emily found happiness in the simple things, the sound of Daniel's laughter, the warmth of his hand in hers, the quiet moments they shared together. And though they still carried the scars of their past, they found solace in each other's arms. They had both been searching for something, and in each other they had found it. The kind stranger had become her closest friend, her confidant, her partner in life. And Emily knew that she would be forever grateful for the day she had taken a chance and approached him on that bench in the town square. For in Daniel, she had found not just a kind stranger, but the love of her life.